Hello and welcome back to WGBH's Drama After Dark, our live drama after show where tonight we are talking about the second episode of Call The Midwife here in season 9. Woo!
Hello.
I'm Jacqui Bruley, joined as always by co-host Andrea Willanen. Andrea, how are you doing these trying times?
I'm great. I get to wear pajamas all day and hang out in my house. What more can you ask for?
You know, it's going well for us. Everyone is healthy so far on our team, so we're pretty happy. What doesn't make me happy is that I have to do the speed recap tonight.
Mm-hmm.
And that always stresses me out.
It does. But I think you can do it this week, Jacqui, because unlike Poldark and unlike Sanditon, Call the Midwife has the ability to only spend a couple days per episode, not an actual week of time.
Or like several years somehow. Yeah, it's true. It's true.
We have to fast forward 5 years in one episode.
It's because there's so much pathos.
But, yeah. All right, so with that, why don't we have you take it away?
All right, I've got the timer, and I promise not to try and, cheat.
Okay.
All right, are you ready?
I am.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Boom. Poplar's a milk thief, and Monica, Joan, and Fred are on the case. Surprise! She's pregnant, her name is Tina, and she's struggling. She's a working girl who lost both of her other children, and Sister Julianne tries to help her to no avail when she has an ectopic pregnancy. Also, a cute family turns out okay after Dr. Turner diagnoses the grandmother with a very weird disease where her blood collects iron. Yikes. In other news, Sergeant Wolf almost dies of a heart attack, and Fred steals cake.
Yay! Oh, yeah. You did it!
Okay, we are both doing very well with Call the Midwife, Andrea. I'm not mad at it.
There's a first time for everything, Jacqui, and I think this might be the first time that you haven't gone over by a word, so.
I think you're right. You know what? I'll take it. Take your victories while you can.
Exactly. I do want to go back to something, though, which is that you talked about one of my favorite moments in this episode in your speed recap right at the end there, which is Fred, like a sad, angry little bear in the closet eating fruitcake because he hasn't been able to eat sweets for Lent. I died during that scene. Like, first of all, I love how Violet is vaguely put out, but not really put out. She's just like, couldn't you have used a fork? Which is, about as light of a scolding as you can get.
Right, especially because when she bounds into the room with the, rolling pin at the ready to beat the intruder to death.
I know.
She pivots really quickly from, there's someone in my house who I need to take out to, oh, it's just my husband being a bear in the woods eating honey with his paws.
Hungry bear in the woods. Exactly.
I love Fred so much. He's kind of my favorite. However, I have another favorite moment from this episode.
Okay.
Which involves one of my very favorite characters. And this is the part where Tina tells Dr. Turner that she likes his eyes because they look like Paul McCartney, her third favorite Beatle.
Yes. It's kind of like a reverse compliment, right? It would be like, I love your hair. It looks like my least favorite person's. You would just be like, oh, thanks.
Like, thank you. Okay.
Yeah, it was pretty great. I also liked, as soon as they dropped that in here, it was an instant, I can't snap with this hand. It was an instant way of knowing what time period it was, because you're like, the Beatles are here. Okay, all right.
Right, and they're famous enough and popular enough that she has a ranking of which one she likes the best.
Exactly. Yeah. They're not playing at the Cavern anymore. They're playing on the Ed Sullivan Show probably at this point. And we will find out later in the episode a little bit more because we have special correspondent Megan in the field coming to tell us more about that today, right?
Yes, we do, and I'm thrilled that we're able to do this again because having Megan join us is always a good time. So
yeah. However, your favorite moment did remind me of one of my other favorite moments in the episode, which was when we saw Sister Julian playing mother to Tina. And it was interesting to me because with her, she does play mother to Sheila a lot, but she is always sort of that Professor McGonagall Karen character, right? Like she cares about people in a sterner way.
Yeah, maybe she shoves her biscuit tin at you and insists that you have one.
Yes, exactly. And she tells you you're a good student. But this, she was really upset about Tina in a way I don't think we've seen her get as involved before with other patients. I might be wrong, but I feel that this was definitely one of the cases that affected her the most.
No, I would agree with that. I think you're right. This does feel like the most involved we've seen her. I mean, even to the extent that she's, riding in the car to the hospital with Tina and like giving her a little cuddle.
Yeah. Yeah. And actually going and going back on something that she disagrees with, which is asking Trixie to help Tina with birth control, even though as a sister in this order, she doesn't technically agree with it. So I think it was an interesting episode for her, especially.
Yeah, and this is one of those times where I really enjoy that friendship between Sister Julianne and Sister Monica Joan, where even though sometimes Monica Joan is like a little out of it, she still has something important to teach these people. So when she's able to say to Sister Julianne, like, look, the hard part of Lent is that you gotta just like let things go.
Yeah. And
that's what triggers the like, oh, okay, we should have a conversation about birth control with Trixie. It's like, oh, okay, all right.
Exactly. A lot of good moments come out of that relationship.
Seriously. Well, so those are our favorite moments. We, of course, want to know what your favorite moments are, internet friends. So if you're watching at home, please tell us what you loved about tonight's episode, or any episode for that matter. We're not picky. And you can drop those on Twitter using our hashtag #DramaAfterDark, or reply to the tweet that has this video. You can also put those in the Facebook comments, or put them in the YouTube comments for that matter. And we will get them. Our trusty social producer, Zach, is right now on the internet scrolling through the feeds and keeping an eye out for those. So don't forget. And on that note, please vote in our Twitter poll, which is linked underneath the tweet that has this episode, because we are going to get to those thoughts very soon when we start our hot take debate. But first, to the social phone, because I think we've got a couple of tweets that have come in already. And I'm right. Okay. So actually, speaking of that moment we just talked about, Andrea, at SkateFan78 on Twitter says, I must accept the world as it is, not as I wish it to be. Sage words at Call The Midwife, especially right now.
Yeah, I would say, and I think that definitely speaks to a lot of the moments we saw in this episode.
Yeah. Another great tweet here from at BBC American Girl, great Twitter handle. Nurse Crane to the rescue with tea. We can always count on Phyllis. Yes, we can.
Yes, and honestly, thank God we can, because somebody here needs to be the person with like their head on straight. A lot of people are governed by emotions in this show, and Phyllis, while she has her moments, is not usually one of them.
Seriously. Now, one more tweet before we go. This is from at I Cherish Writing, who says, Phyllis is such a pal. She's always there when the ladies need her. Truer words I've never spoken. We love Phyllis. What can we say?
And I think that actually those comments all come in, bringing us into our hot take debate this week.
Look at that.
Look at what we did there.
Oh, man, it's like we planned the show out.
So the hot take debate this week is, do we think Sergeant Wolf should have dumped Miss Higgins after all that? And Jacqui, I think you have an opinion on this.
I do, or rather, I'm willing to argue this opinion, which is that I think he might have made the right call, which I know is going to be an unpopular choice, but here we are. I think it's really hard for us to make a call on what he's going through, not having experienced that. Like I've been very blessed to not have, a very serious diagnosis in my personal life. And so from that perspective, I'm like, you got to do what you got to do, Sergeant Wolf. That's part A. Part B is, I think that when they've just started dating and they haven't really been seeing each other for that long, I think he's got a good point where like it hasn't really been long enough that it's going to be like gut wrenching. It obviously would be very upsetting for her if he does indeed die of this heart condition. But if they continue to date and she takes care of him as this is happening, it's only going to be worse. And they're kind of at a spot where she can extricate herself a little bit. And it might be better for both of them. I think I would feel really differently about this if they were married or if they had been together for a really long time. Like from what we can piece together, it's been maybe a couple months and they're like 1960s dating. So they're like occasionally going to the pictures. maybe he's messing around and taking her to the nude art show they took Phyllis to last season. But you know, they're not like that. They're not that serious yet, which I feel kind of bad saying because obviously she's really upset. But yeah, I guess that's my thought process.
Okay.
Debate me.
That my debate to that is no, I don't think you should have broken up with her. And that's because I think, you know, everybody has different abilities and is abled in different ways and has different situations and all that. And we know Ms. Higgins. She works in a hospital, basically. You know, she works in a doctor's office, a private practice, and she sees stuff all the time. And she sees the worst of humanity and the best of humanity. And the thing is, Aubrey doesn't fall into one of those. He falls somewhere in the middle of that spectrum. And even though I think he probably feels some shame at having to go live with his sister because, you know, he's an independent man. He always has been. I imagine he's fought in the war. He's an older man, so he has that level of, you know, pride going on there. I think if he cares about her, if he really cares about her, he can suck up that pride and you know, keep seeing her.
I'm not mad at that. I think that's fair. It's such a hard question because, like,
yeah,
it's such a bad position to be put in.
Oh, absolutely. It's a hard thing to do. Either way.
For sure. Well, I think we'll have to agree to disagree. I was going to say disagree to disagree, but that's not quite right.
Disagree to agree.
We'll just agree to agree on this one. Agree that it's a sucky position to be in, and disagree on maybe what we would do in that position. But let's take a look at what the internet is saying here. I'm going to go ahead and pick up the old social phone and see. Oh no. I accidentally navigated away from Zach and Slack, so which is a nice rhyme.
It's going to take a minute to see if I won the debate this week.
Yeah, I think we'll have to check. Okay, so before we go check on the poll, we've got a nice comment here from Gloria, who says hi from Albany. Hey, Gloria, thanks for tuning in. Good to see ya. All right, we're gonna see what the Twitter poll situation is. It's loading. We're taxing the internet in my house, guys, but we're doing the best that we can here. Okay, so we only have a couple of votes here, and I think we're gonna have to check this later because right now, both people have voted in the yes column, which I'm kind of surprised by.
Interesting. Okay. All right. Maybe I was wrong. Who knows?
Maybe not. I mean, all right. If you're out there and you're watching, please tell us what you're thinking here because we want to know more. And I think I don't want to make a call on just 2 votes.
So we'll check back on that guy later. But
yes,
I think it's now time for our magic segment.
It is. It's time for one of our favorite segments, which is Megan in the Field.
Megan, woo!
Yay! Thank you for joining us, Megan.
Hi, Jacqui. I'm here. I'm so glad to be back.
Coming at us live from Maine, everybody.
Yes. In fact, I'm at my parents' house in Maine, so quite far from you guys.
It's true, but you're never far from our hearts.
Oh, thank you. You guys too. Miss you guys.
We miss you too. So we're here to talk to you a little bit about a thing that came up in this episode, which is the Beatles, obviously, but specifically, you did a little digging and had found something interesting about this Paul McCartney shout-out in tonight's episode. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I had a lot of fun digging into this one. I'm a big fan of the Beatles. This was like a dream assignment, so thank you guys. And I found something pretty incredible that really blew my mind, and I hope you guys will enjoy it. So I was digging into this Paul McCartney reference, and upon a little research, I discovered that Paul McCartney himself is actually a fan of Call The Midwife for a really amazing reason. And the reason is his mother was actually a midwife herself, his mother Mary. So growing up in Liverpool, some of his earliest memories of his mother are her leaving at night to go attend to a birth. And she was even a cycling midwife. So the image to me of young little Paul McCartney and watching his mother cycling around Liverpool as a midwife, I think is just pretty amazing. So he has said that he is actually a fan of the show.
Oh my gosh.
I know. So wholesome, right? I mean, so wholesome.
Incredibly wholesome. And I just love the image of Sir Paul McCartney watching this show and then seeing himself mentioned. I wonder if he was a little annoyed that he was the 3rd favorite Beatle, though.
Exactly. I know. I mean, stars, they're just like us, right? They watch Call the Midwife and cry to it.
There it is. Now, in your research, can you tell us a little bit about what you found about exactly what the Beatles were up to in 1965? I think we all know, about the band and a lot of their discography, but we may not know exactly what was happening in this era.
Yeah, so Andrea, you were right. I'm going to give you a little shout out later. But 1965 was a really, really big year for the Beatles. This is like the height of Beatlemania. And as some of you guys might know, Beatlemania started in the UK and then it kind of migrated to America with when the Beatles went on the Ed Sullivan Show, which was the first time they were on American television. And that was 1964. So we are about a year into like the complete hysteria of the Beatles taking over the world, basically. And so a few other big things that happened in 1965 for the Beatles, they released their film Help! Exclamation point. And the album released the songs like Help and Ticket to Ride, which are some of my favorites. And they also went on to be nominated for a Grammy that year. In August, they released the song Yesterday, which is, one of their most famous songs. And it also went on to become one of the most covered songs of all time. I mean, it's a pretty great song, so I understand why. And then also in August, they kicked off their third tour of America, which started with their huge concert at Shea Stadium in New York, which was really like the first time a concert like this had ever been done at a huge outdoor arena. And I think it broke a whole ton of records for attendance. So that was a really big year for them. And then they also released the album Rubber Soul, which had songs like Drive My Car and In My Life, which I would say is probably my favorite Beatles song. And then to top it all off, in October, they were made members of the Most Excellent Order of the British Empire by Queen Elizabeth. All four members. So this was a huge year for the Beatles. So I'm really excited to see what the show might reference. Maybe they'll give a shout out to George or Ringo or John. We'll see. Yep. Yeah, so I loved Tina's little exchange with the doctor. It was one of my favorite moments, I would say, of the whole season so far. I'm similar to Tina, but a little different, and I'll explain it a little bit. So my number one is Paul. I mean, I have to go with Paul. The eyes, right? And also just because he wrote so many of the Beatles songs, I think I just have to give him that top spot. I also loved him later in Wings, so that's another one. My number two is definitely John, because I love the song Imagine. I definitely think it's one of the, best songs ever written, you could say. But also for his style, the glasses, just the overall iconic style, and also his activism for peace, too, I would say. Number three, I'm going to say George, because he did a lot of really cool stuff with like Indian instruments and playing the sitar, just very creative. And then the fourth is Ringo. He's great, but I imagine he's just a little underrated. So he's in my number four spot.
This is hilarious because Andrea and I both did this exercise when we talked about having this segment. And we had a very different ranking because we both are big Ringo fans. And I actually put John in the fourth spot because of his, sort of like unsavory spousal abuse stuff. But he is an incredible musician, and I think we can't discount that part. But yeah, that's a big part of the rankings for me for sure. And George is kind of hilarious. So I think our ranking is, and Andrea, not if I'm getting this right. It's George, Ringo, Paul, John.
Yes, I believe that was correct.
There it is.
Beatles career personally, and Ringo, I mean, any man who can write and sing a song about an octopus and have it be a hit is all right with me.
Gotta go for a drummer on occasion, Now, Megan, before we let you go, we have one more question, which is, can you tell us a little bit about, a little birdie told me that you have a really interesting experience, and I would love to hear more about that.
Yeah, so I was really lucky back in 2012 when I was studying abroad. I studied abroad in Spain, but I did a trip to London, and I got to actually visit Abbey Road. And I got to recreate the iconic album cover of Abbey Road. I think Eddie's going to put it up on the screen there. There it is.
Oh, so great.
And you know, the funny thing about this is that it's a completely functioning road. Like, it's just like a normal road, like any other road in London. So to take that photo, you literally have to stop traffic. So we had like one chance to get it right, and we were just like so lucky. Some random tourist took that photo for us because I was just with 4 people. So it's pretty iconic. I should have looked at the top of my head which one I am in this photo. If someone knows, let me know. But it was pretty fun.
That's incredible.
I have shoes on. So yeah. So yeah, it was pretty awesome. I feel very connected now to Beatle history.
That is so cool. Well, thank you so much for joining us and bringing us all this Beatles information. Now, we're going to have Megan join us a few more times this season for sure as our 1960s correspondent. So if you have specific things about the 60s you want to know more about, specifically 1965, put those in the comments and we can make sure to assign those to Megan for future segments. But first, we are going to move on to our next segment, which is called Tearjerker.
How can you do a Call The Midwife show without having a segment called Tearjerker? I ask you. Because the show is all about the emotions. So much emotion.
It really is. And we thought about like how we could cover this and not have it be super depressing. So we just decided we're gonna lean right into it. And each week we're going to bring you the moment that made us cry, or like closest to crying, or just like really got us right in the feels. And this week is no exception. We definitely have some tearjerker moments. Andrea, do you want to give us yours first?
Yeah, absolutely. I have to say, like, I really, as we have talked about, Jacqui, I feel like this season of Call The Midwife is going pretty easy on us, so we're worried for the big tearjerker moment at the end of the season. But this episode, I definitely felt for Miss Higgins when she's sitting at her desk looking at the little flower on it, and like so clearly upset. And she has this minute where she just looks so lost and little and elderly in a way that she hasn't felt for so much of the show, where she's usually so she's so vital and like kind of bossy and cool. And in this episode, just seeing that moment was so sad for me. So I was so happy when Phyllis, of course, sweeps in to save the day with offers of tea and fresh air, because that's clearly what she needed in that moment. So I was really happy to see that. But yeah, for a minute there, I was like, oh no, Miss Higgins.
I know, I felt the same way, and I liked that they gave her a moment of vulnerability, because I feel like she's one of those characters who like never gets to have that weakness and be sad, and she earned it in this episode.
Oh man, did she? Yeah, she had a lot in this episode, and I think often Call The Midwife does this, where they introduce a character and you learn a lot about them over several seasons. And I feel like this is the season where we're starting to finally. We know her personality, now we're starting to delve into her character. So I think we might see a little bit more of that this season.
I hope so, especially if we get a little bit more of that Phyllis and Miss Higgins friendship, because for now, like, it's always been interesting to me that they've had like at least 2 like kind of like bossy broads on this show, and they often butt heads. So we started with Sister Angelina and Phyllis really like not getting along, and then we had Miss Higgins join, and they're all very like, I know how to file. I know what happens in this practice. You'll do what I say.
I know nursing better than you know nursing.
Right. And it's so great to see them getting along instead of like trying to one-up each other.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm excited to see more.
Totally. Now,
Jacqui, what was your tearjerker moment? You can't get away without telling me.
I will tell you. So the whole Laverne Flory plotline really got me, because there's just something so upsetting about like someone is sick and we don't know what's happening and we don't know why. And like our whole family unit is like, you know, up in the air and like might change a lot because we're not really sure what's going to happen. That really gets to me. And like, I mean, we've talked about this a lot Andrea, but like this hit a little too close to home for me. Like sick mom stuff like really gets me, and this was no exception. But in particular, the conversation about like caring for your parents and what that can look like. I think it's a really important conversation to have, but like this was a lot. But I think of all of it, the thing that really got me was the part where Laverne comes home and her husband's there, and she's like, all right, so we're gonna like have to give up our dream of owning a home. I'm gonna need to like stay at home and take care of these kids because my mom can't watch them anymore. You're gonna have to put in extra hours, or we're gonna have to tighten our belts a little bit. And he's just like, I don't care about any of that. Is Flory okay?
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh, he's a good guy.
Yeah. He's awesome because he is totally ride or die. Like, you can tell. If she had been like, look, we're going to have to take care of her. We're going to have to put the kids up for adoption or make them work. You're going to have to work 24/7. Maybe start betting on the horses, but like do a good job. And people have been like, sure, babe, I'm there. Let's do this.
Whatever happens. Like, yes, ma'am.
Yeah. He was great. He was a great character, I think, especially because we've seen so many horrible husbands who are not necessarily untrue to this era. He was definitely a great male role model character.
Seriously, we've seen some real stinkers of husbands on this show over the years. So I think we're going to take a quick look at the old social phone and see if anything exciting has come in, because I've seen a couple of pop-ups on my screen, and I think we have some things. So AJ says on Facebook, that is indeed a fun fact about Paul McCartney, so thank you, Megan, for that. That was great. And Judy says, another great show with a heart, also on Facebook. So thank you guys for tuning in, AJ and Judy. And I'm going to take another look at that Twitter poll, too, and see what we're looking at. Because I want to know if there's an update. Oh, okay. Time will tell. Things have changed. So, in fact, while we were waiting, the Twitter poll has shifted from entirely yes votes to a 28% yes and an overwhelming majority of 70% of people saying no. And then one person says, and I'm going to try and get her Twitter handle here, at Gonzo_Stojo or Stoyo says, pour both of them with the crying smiley face, which like big mood Jessica. Yes.
I just want, I'm making an assumption here, so apologies if I'm getting this wrong. I just want an adorable septuagenarian romance.
I know.
Like, I'm honest.
Look,
that's what I want.
We deserve it. We've waited too long, and we just want a sweet older couple to find love.
And like, I mean, we did have Fred and Violet, but they're not in their 70s by any means.
No.
But I also kind of like Audrey because he's kind of weird. He takes girls to nude art shows, and he's like, "Yeah, I knew them. Whatever.
Like, it's fine. It's not."
Aubrey knows how to party.
I also just love that we found out today that his name is Aubrey, like, which is just a wonderful name for him to have.
So to close this out, I think we do have some recommendations this week in the if you like this.
We sure do, and they're actually kind of unusual recommendations for us in terms of like format.
Yeah.
So
why don't you go first, Jacqui?
I'm happy to go first. So I have two recommendations. If you like Call the Midwife and you like this show that you're watching right now, Drama After Dark, I have two things that I think you will love. Thing one is the Call the Midwife cast recorded just a really touching, beautiful video for the staff, the nurses and doctors and maintenance staff and all the folks who work in the hospital system in the UK, the NHS, during this COVID-19 nonsense. And if you go on Twitter, you can find it. I think they all retweeted it. And we'll find that and put that in this Twitter thread as well. We'll get Zach to do that. It's just really sweet because they, obviously play medical professionals on TV. And so they feel a connection to this, but they're really passionate about supporting the people who are on the front lines of this thing, which I think is really great. And thing two is actually similar to this. The Call the Midwife team is doing something really cool right now where they are on Wednesday nights in the UK, so it's I think something like 3 p.m. in the US. They are airing a episode on BBC or on the TV there, but you can find it like streaming in the US and watch it at the same time. And then they're doing a live after show, but with like the cast and the crew and the writers. So it's different people each week, but they provide a lot of insight, and you get to interact potentially with some of those people that you're watching on the screen. And they're not doing it in order. They're just kind of picking a different episode each week. It's a lot of fun. I tuned in on Wednesday of this week, and I really enjoyed it. Now, obviously, it's in the afternoon, but if you're like us and you're stuck at home right now, you might want to take those couple of hours in the afternoon on Wednesday, watch the thing, and then go back to finishing your work for your job or hanging out with the kids or the family or whoever. I think it's worth your time. So if you like this, you'll also like that.
Awesome. Mine's a little different, and it's definitely, so I have to be honest, I don't necessarily think that fans of Call the Midwife might like this, but I do think fans of Masterpiece will like this, which is Masterpiece's current offering, World on Fire. It's actually playing right now on Channel 2. Please do not leave us. You can watch it on WGBH.org immediately following this. And the show is really, really great. I had to watch it, not had to, I watched it for several articles that I was writing at work, and it is amazing. It is everything I've wanted and haven't gotten yet from a World War II show. I feel like it's really, I described it to somebody and they called it the millennial version of a World War II movie, and I don't disagree with that, but I think what they mean by that is it's looking at characters that were in the war at that time, but were perhaps not often looked at because they tended to be more hidden in those cultures. Like there's a queer couple that we see, and then there's a female resistance fighter, a single mother, etc. So it's really good. And that's going on right now. You should watch that. But also Masterpiece Studio is doing a podcast where they talk to the stars of the show every week, and you should definitely check that out on pbs.org/masterpiece.
That is awesome. I already would have been into the show, but you recommended it so highly that now it's like on my must-watch top of the list.
Yeah,
and I'm excited to check it out.
Yeah, it really, I feel like the first episode started a little slow, but then once it got going, I was like, I need more. It was the perfect binging show.
Perfect. Well, we've got great opportunities for you to watch something fun and different, so check those out. And we're going to quickly hit up the comment of the day and see if we've got something fun on ye old social phone. Let's see what Zach's got for me here. As always, we've got so many wonderful Call the Midwife fan tweets. So we've got @Lemon Knapp says, "Leave me alone, Call the Midwife is on," which is just like an entirely huge move. And then this is great. Okay, so @Kathy Ginter, I think is how you pronounce that, tweeted what I think might have been the final monologue for tonight. Life is defined not by what we let go, but what we let in. Friendship, kind worlds, frailty, hope. To be human is to be imperfect, and to accept that is to thrive. No path is always strewn with flowers, but therein lies the power of each fragile, tender bloom. Which is just a great sentiment, and I think that is what I will leave you for comment of the day.
Absolutely. I love it. And for those of you at home, we hope you enjoyed today's Drama After Dark. Once again, from our houses in our fancy pajamas. And we hope to see you next week. Same time, same place. Have a great night. Bye.